Hey everybody, welcome back to the How to Move Your Body yoga program. My name is Brentan, and today we're going to be doing some lateral flexion in our spines. That's the little teapot one over to the sides. So when you're ready, make sure you're wearing something comfortable, and let's go ahead and get started at the top of the mat. Standing, because we stand all the time, because this is how we've been sort of entering into these spinal practices. And so we can start to really assess, how do I normally stand? Is that pretty close to neutral? Can I get closer to neutral? So maybe rocking up and down on the soles of the feet. And I'm pro you putting your feet anywhere you like, anything to make your experience more pleasant, more comfortable. Make those changes for yourself. You're at home. I can't see you. I don't care. And so just finding a comfortable stance here, maybe a couple of bends in the knees. I've done some movement today, so I'll do a little bit of kind of vigorous bouncing just to kind of turn on those muscles, but you could always bounce slow or kind of wag out through the knees. Just move in your knees so that then when you go to take them towards straight, they've been moved. Your brain can now go and move them again if it needs to for some reason. And they're straight, but they're soft. Nothing's jammed. Taking the hands to the pelvis, just moving the pelvis forward, backward a little bit. You kind of see, like, where do you normally hang out? For me, it's forward. And if you find that you normally hang out with your pelvis forward or backward, your ribs will probably be the same thing. So see if you can settle your pelvis at neutral without disturbing your legs. Your legs are still soft, they're still kind of powerful, or they have easy access to their power if they need it. And then up to the ribs, up and down with the rib cage, same as the pelvis. Trying to hold the pelvis in some sort of container of support, like a boundary there. So then you can distribute the movement actually up, and you can be deliberate and not wishy-washy. Seeing if you can have your ribs at neutral, open through the chest with the arm bones in a centrated position in the socket as best you can feel that or understand that right now, when we haven't even looked at the shoulders yet in 2019. And so from here, bend the knees, slide the hands down, and start to move the spine around. So maybe start with flexion and extension. That's cat-cow. And see if you can have your legs be strong and centered through that whole chain of motion. Your face is easy, your breathing is super easy. And then see if you can come into sort of like neutral. Granted, like the pelvis is tipped over the thigh bone, so that's gonna set where like the neutral angle is, but your spine goes off on that same angle so that your ribs and your pelvis and your spine are neutral in relation with each other. And without, depending on your hands so much for support, can we start to move the ribs around? So starting to take the spine through some non-linear movements. Flexion and extension, those are explored every time we get up and sit down or stretch or something, but some of these non-linear motions, we don't do as much. So do both directions. And come all the way on up. Great job. So we're gonna do our spinal segmentation work for a full range of motion of all spinal directions. So go ahead, stand however is comfortable for you to stand. We want to find neutral in the pelvis and neutral in the ribs, and then the skull pulled right back over that. And so especially if we're used to some more like text spine or something like that, that's going to feel very deliberate. It's going to feel, like there is some effort required. And so you can always take breaks. You can make your movement shorter. You cannot do everything that I'm suggesting. Even just holding yourself up like this will help create those strength adaptations where needed. Okay, so from here, can we freeze everything all the way up to the shoulders? Can we just move from the neck? That's the question. We're gonna go on an experiment and test it out. So chin down, we'll start chin down. And do that without collapsing your chest. So it's just chin down. We know that the neck ends right here. Actually, when your chin goes down, you can take your hand back there and kind of feel for like the biggest knobby point. The biggest knobby point. If you feel a knobby point, trace all the way up. The highest knobby point, let's say. The highest knobby point is where the neck ends and the thoracic spine begins. So from this point down, you're still in neutral. And then just seeing here, if we cannot change anything in the chest, the shoulders, but simply turn the nose over towards the right, keep your chin in. So now we're in a little rotation here, a little flexion and rotation. But then we can turn this into lateral flexion, a side bend. So the way we do that is we keep the ear heavy, we keep the chin drawing back like you're trying to double chin yourself, and just start to roll the head open. Starting to feel the neck now more like a slinky, okay? And so we wanna imagine like three-dimensionally what that slinky is and respect that slinky shape through this side, through the front, through the back, and through this side, up and over. And so from here, we start to roll the head back into extension. So we gotta pull the chin back evenly from the collarbones and still pull the chin in as we go over to the other side to our lateral flexion. From lateral flexion, we turn it into rotation as we turn the chin down, and then we roll back down through center. So going to the other side now, over to the left. And then lateral flexion, peeling the ear to stack, the ears to stack, the chin stays in. And now imagining like ears can go back away from the body evenly. And then over to the right. And then we rotate down. And then we go down through center and back up. So when we do these properly, we get long as we do it, and then it's like almost more effortless for us to keep that length. Now, we pay attention to where that knobby point was, T1, thoracic spine 1, down to T12, somewhere in here, and that's where the ribs all come together on the back, okay? So this is the most stuck part. Structurally, the way that the bones are designed, there's less degrees of flexion, extension, rotation than in the neck or in the low back. And so having said that, it's gonna be easier to move in the low back, and so it's gonna be harder for us to hold still there. That's the hard part about this. That's what makes this simple but not easy, is that we hold ourselves steady in the legs, neutral in the pelvis. There's things happening in the lower abdomen, the buttocks, the lower, the side waist, all to help that happen. And now we can take the hands forward, but keeping the shoulders back in neutral. They're not internally rotating forward. Keep them shoulders back in neutral, spine in neutral. And then from this position, we can start with flexion forward. So keeping everything from here down frozen, but just starting to flex the mid-back spine forward. The neck will do some of it, but I also want to keep the neck out of it as much as possible so I can teach my brain, hey, no, that's not where I want to move, because then the brain will move the neck and then it'll be satisfied, right? So I need it to move somewhere else, even if it's just a little bit. And now from here, we'll rotate over to the right. But now the abdomen, I can feel it working because it's holding me in here, so I'm not moving down. And now I need to respect the contents of my abdomen. They need to sort of wash back with me. So now I'm moving my whole torso cavity as I peel open here. So the true side bend over the pelvis, where I'm neither flexing forward nor am I extending back. It's just like a true side bend up and over. And feeling all the contents of the abdomen hugging into like the center line, the center channel that I can kind of arc up and over. And now taking this sideways, I have to hold and hug it in as I go back over the back of the pelvis. And I just keep staying lifted, lifted, lifted. And then it's a true side bend over at the left side. And so I'm trying not to move on my shoulders here. I'm just trying to have this be spinal movement, not from the pelvis right now, just for the purposes of training. And then rolling the chest forward. We can switch our sides. So now you can rotate to the left. Peel open, side bend to the left, trying to feel like the whole body, the whole front side of the body has to peel open with you so that the rib cage is truly up and over. You can feel it there even if it's hard, if it's like hard to feel for you. Then take your hands to your ribs, try to get your shoulders back in neutral, but then feel like, am I, busting open? Am I curling in here? Can I get it just a true side bend? And then going back. And then going over the right side. And giving yourself a little bit of time under tension. Really seeing, get yourself nice and grounded from the low back spine down. And then rolling forward. Whew. And coming all the way up and shaking out. So just kind of sensing like, how successful were you there? Could you feel everything? If not, don't worry. This builds with repetition and the brain starts to understand what we're asking it to do the more times we ask our brain to do it. So let's go ahead and do some standing lateral bending. We'll do some that are active and then some that are a little bit more passive so that we can start to just explore a little bit more range in there in a way of moving that we don't normally do. So to start a little bit actively, we'll just take the side bend with the neck and we'll just kind of tick-tock the head from the right to the left. And as we do this, again, we'll start to sense like, okay, where is neutral? Where is neutral? And then how, like, am I moving even subtly any part of my ribs, any part of my spine, my pelvis? And as I start asking myself those questions, I might find that I start to move more slowly because in order to answer those questions, I need a good gauge on what's happening. Okay, so the next time we go over to the left, let's go over to the left. Let's imagine both sides of the neck here working to hold this, right? And we're obeying that sort of cylindrical quality that the neck has, sort of like a slinky. And from here, we can see if we can take our hands to our waists. So here they're on the pelvis. This is the boundary from the pelvis down. We're gonna try to not move so much. But then in the side waist, we can see, actually, let's bring the head back up. We'll just do it, we'll add it in later maybe, but let's just see if we can move from the side waist in sort of like that same tick-tock fashion. So have your legs, again, wherever is comfortable. You just want to be able to feel your pelvis, feel your legs like strong so that they can anchor the pelvis so the pelvis isn't moving. And then I want to set the shoulders in neutral and then see if I can feel my ribs. So imagine now everything's kind of conspiring to get you into this sort of Peter Pan shape of neutral. You know, that Peter Pan where it's just very symmetrical all the way up. And now can I use all of those efforts to start to take me over to one side and then back and over to the other. And I want to be just kind of very sensitive to my spine and see, am I combining this movement with anything else? Am I combining it with flexion, where the spine, you know, rolls forward? Am I combining it with extension, where the spine rolls back? And then I want to see, can I feel all the way from the tailbone all the way up? And this actually, again, becomes hip stability work, because I can feel how my legs actually, as I lean off to the left, the right leg has more work to do to really anchor and hold the pelvis. Okay, so the next time you come up, you decide, like, can you add more load? Because if you want to try, you can take your hands behind your head. And you want to, again, have this be with the spine still in neutral. A lot of times you do that with your arms and things start to bust out in the ribs and stuff. So if you can't get your hands back here with keeping your spine neutral, then do something else. You know, take your hands here, take your hands more here. And see, because we want to still feel all of this sort of work to hold everything together. And we can do the same thing. We can see if we can tick-tock and come back. Alrighty, so we can go ahead and release that. Like, how did all of that feel for you? Lots of crazy things for me. Let's do this a little bit more passively to see, well, if gravity finds any more space for us. So from here, I'm gonna let my left ear go towards the shoulder, but I'm just gonna kind of let it be a little bit of dead weight, but I'm still gonna let the rest of my body be lifted up. So I'm not sort of just like slumping. The rest of the spine still is being supported in neutral. And now from the top of the spine going down, so maintaining that stable structure until like the very last moment, it's, can I start tipping from the shoulder? And again, trying to discern like any amount of flexion or extension. I study my ribs for that. And so I've just sort of learned, like, okay, what do my ribs do when my spine is extending? And what do my ribs do when my spine is flexing? And then I can look at my ribs in any moment, because that's easier for me to kind of feel like they're more in front of me. Like, I don't know, it's just easier for me to feel. And now, as we start to tip down, maybe we bend our knees and we get really heavy with that bottom shoulder. And we get really heavy through the head and through the tailbone both. So it's like this nice arc that we're creating. And if you can feel your ribs there, taking nice, slow, deep breaths into like the most center part of your body that you can feel. If you like to add the right arm, you can reach the right arm up and just see how that changes it. How does that change your ribs? How does that change your pelvis? Let's go ahead and come all the way on up out of that. Wow. And let's do the other side. So shake out, do whatever you like. Just keep your breathing easy, like whatever you need to do that. Face easy, so then the nervous system is like, hey, we're having cool times. Nothing scary or threatening here. So neutral. And then the right ear goes down to the right shoulder, but then go back to neutral with the body. And so you're really coming back there, because I think if we set ourselves up well in neutral, then everything has a more possibility of feeling really good and really intense down the line, rather than like, what? Like, this is confusing. Well, yeah, it's confusing if you don't set yourself up well. And so then it's starting to feel like now, like the right shoulder is sort of going down with it, melting. And first, it's like, as soon as my spine starts to do something like rotate or laterally bend, my shoulders start to do weird things. So sometimes I have to sort of keep them moving a little bit to just kind of feel like, okay, what are those guys doing? Even if like I'm confused about it, you know, sometimes you just kind of land on something, you don't know why it feels better, but it does. And so then it's like, okay, my ribs will tell me, like, am I flexing? Oh, I can be going way more. Okay. Am I flexing? Am I extending in any place? And as I keep going, we can start to bend the knees kind of both forward, letting that bottom arm kind of be nice and heavy, the tailbone heavy, but then also, that's what I keep forgetting, it's like, whoo, the head heavy. And feeling that rib cage and just breathing and being easy. And if it feels good to lengthen the left arm, you can. As you feel ready, coming all the way on up out of that. Wonderful job, my friends. Let's go ahead and feel this in just some other arrangement. Come on down to tabletop position. Hands underneath shoulders, knees underneath hips. You can move around a bit, just however it feels good. If we come back up to a neutral spine tabletop position, can feel the spine in its natural curves, feel the pelvis, feel the ribs. Keeping the spine in its natural curves, can we sort of C-shape the spine, kind of send the hips over to one side and look over that shoulder. And keeping the spine in its natural curves, come back to center. And so you might find this is less range of motion than if you were to just sort of let your spine go flippy floppy wherever, you know, it wanted to go. But it's more specific. And because it's more specific, the benefits are clear. Like, if I can keep my spine in its four natural curves, so I'm not flexing or extending as I'm doing this, then I'm really asking movement to happen in certain places. And maybe those places aren't the easiest place for my brain to access. And so it's hard in a way that you can't see visually, but it's challenging nonetheless. And as you feel ready, you can come to a rest however you like. So if you want a child's pose, you can take a child's pose. If that doesn't feel so good, maybe you come up to a seat. And so in fact, that's where we'll meet in a comfortable seated position today. We can take a seated Shavasana together. But before we do that, maybe side stretch again. So if we have our pelvis in neutral, sit up on a chair if you can't get your pelvis in neutral on the floor. And with pelvis in neutral, rib cage in neutral, head back over the shoulders. We can do anything that feels good with the arms, including hands down by the side to sort of tent as you kind of go back and forth, or you can float hands up behind the head without disturbing your ribs or your spine or your pelvis to do that. And then from here, maybe up and over one side, and coming back and going up and over the other. And then even coming up, maybe it'll feel good to rotate, so keeping your chest nice and open, turn from your ribs over to one side. And coming back to center, turn from your whole rib cage over to the other side. Keep your ribs knitting in on the front, onto the breastbone. That's where they knit in. So when you're twisting the whole rib cage and not just pieces of it as the front ribs sort of burst open. Come on back. Coming to a nice upright seated position where we can just do a little bit of time under tension to have the spine held up in neutral. If it feels good to close your eyes, you can do that. You want to take a big breath in through your nose. An easy breath out through your mouth. Great job today. I hope that you can feel this work get you a little bit more specific, that can help you establish a little bit more intimacy and nuance in your relationship with your body, with your joints, with movement, with how you process it, with your value system for how you move, why you move, when you move. And so that all of this is so that, our bodies work and feel better today and tomorrow. So I thank you so much for your time today. You can sit and breathe here for a little bit if you like. So great for the nervous system. Otherwise, I'll leave you here today. And I'll just say that I'd love to see you over on our Patreon if you'd like to donate to this work. So I'll include that link in the description below. I'll see you here next time. Thank you.